Today, I'm going to be talking about The Tonight Show hosted by Kieran Cuddly, okay, who is joined by John McGuirk, Trina O'Connor, and Adele McGinley, and they're going to be talking about two different subjects, okay? Calls for bail reform because of Sunday's shooting in Fair Green in Carlow, and of course the scrapped IPAS centres because of Coolock. Now, of course, we know that IPAS centres don't work, and that various things are, crazy with that as well, and that sort of mass bringing people over, human trafficking is not the way to do immigration. Also, the bail has to be massively reformed because the guy who was the Sunday shooter was actually let out on bail, okay, and he had previous firearms offenses, and he could have killed a whole bunch of people when he went into that, shopping center. So this one's going to be interesting. Now, I only watched The Tonight Show on Virgin Media, guys. Honestly, if they have someone else that's like conservative, like John McGuirk or Ben Scallon on, because normally this show is just complete brainwash propaganda. It's all just left-leaning, liberal, woke stuff. But it's good to see John McGuirk on, who is the leader, the owner, the CEO of Gripped Media. So go over to Gripped Media, check them out. But I have a bunch of videos to react to today, so stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe. And we're going to start off with, of course, the man himself, okay? Kieran Cuddly. Let's hear exactly what they're going to be talking about today, okay? Because we're going to go through every single video. And like I said before, I actually would react on Virgin Media's, YouTube channel, but they don't post the full videos, and it's really awkward. Sometimes the videos are awful over there, so let's watch these bunch of videos that they have on Twitter, on X, because they put up mostly, the videos on X. Okay, the first video we're going to react to today is by John McGuirk talking about bail laws, okay? Because of course, that guy that shot up the shopping center had like 80 previous convictions. They all have like 80 previous convictions, 100 previous convictions. I saw one lad before in the city, he had 113 previous convictions. I mean, that's crazy. That is absolutely ludicrous. So, it should be like a few, after your 5th attempt or 10th criminal charge, there should be something done, guys, put in jail. Because if not, people don't fear the system then. There has to be a little bit of fear involved with the jail as well,
I think you have to go back to what is the criminal justice system for? What is the purpose of it? Let's go back to first principles. Why do we have a court system? Why do we even have a police force? It's to keep the public safe. That's their job. The whole purpose of prisons, courts, the whole lot of it, the idea is to remove people from society who pose a threat to the rest of us and put them behind bars. That's the reason we have the system. That's the reason why we fund it. Now, obviously, there's a balance to be struck. There should be a high bar to removing and depriving somebody of their liberty. But where somebody is facing serious charges, where it is alleged by the state that they have engaged in activity that is violent and is likely or potentially violent or is likely to pose a threat to the rest to the public, I think a Garda should be able to make a case that that person should be remanded in custody, and I think there should be deference given to the Gardaí in that respect in relation to serious charges. I think most people would agree with that. I think, however, there's another problem here, which is the speed and efficiency of the criminal justice system. Because there are people in this country who are waiting years to go on trial. I mean, literally, in the case of one very tragic, high-profile case, obviously in relation to what happened in Parnell Street last, November, 12 months. There's a gentleman who's waiting to go on trial for that, who's been waiting for almost 18 months. There was a similar incident, an all too similar incident in the UK, where that trial, which took place 6 months later, and where the trial has already been done. The speed at which we are bringing people to trial is far too slow, and therefore bail becomes more of a necessity.
Yeah, so that is crazy, guys. I mean, they have to obviously increase the speed of which they bring people to, to trial, because, it should happen within a couple of days, honestly. That would be the best case scenario. Your man's been waiting for 18 months. I mean, come on, lads. Even a few months, even 3 months. But to have the guy on on flipping bail for 2 years and this kind of thing, and I'm not sure. Okay, so I think the guy, that stabbed, now he's in jail. He's not let out onto the streets, guys, obviously. He's still in jail, thank God. The guy that stabbed the kids in Parnell Square. But, he should be going to prison, which is different than jail, quicker. It should happen. That process should be like quick. But as everything in the Irish justice system, we're slow as hell, guys. It's like we're on Irish time, right? Everyone's flipping an hour late, and, just make that bigger as the time goes on, guys. Everyone's on feckin', God knows, 3 years late, like crazy. But this is another video as well. This is by John McGuirk as well. I just came across this one.
Is as follows. We have a system in this country where every week you will find cases like the gentleman who walked in front of Judge Martin Nolan with hundreds of videos of extreme child pornography on his phone, was given a suspended sentence and walked back into society. Now, I and many people feel that if you are viewing that kind of material, you are a risk to society. And people who are convicted of that offence are routinely walking out.
Big time. And they actually have shown that these people commit those crimes. Like, if you're watching that kind of hardcore, weird child stuff, you're going to be more likely to commit that crime as well. Without a doubt, guys. You know, and they're just letting them walk back onto the street. Oh, this guy had 4,000 images and Now, I understand the guy didn't commit those crimes, but even having that material in your possession is a crime. So I don't know how they don't go to jail for that. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it, guys. That's just is absurd, like, honestly.
If you walk into court after court in the land, you will find people walking into court, having committed offences, having 70, 80, 90 previous convictions and walking free again. There are other jurisdictions. You say Victorian. California is one of the most liberal jurisdictions in the world. If you commit 3 serious offences, you go to prison. It's a 3 strikes and you're out rule. I am not...
Yeah, I love that. So he was saying that, you know, of course, guys, you know, this sort of idea with this 80 previous convictions, I saw loads of people, 60, 40. How the fuck could you have 113 previous convictions? I saw one lad, 113, including robbery, assault, beating up old women, like, in my local city. And then the guy just gets to walk free. Like, what the hell is going on? That's insane. Like, so I love what he said there about the 3 strikes and his out rule. That's like in California. That's an American rule. It's kind of based off baseball. And Bill Clinton brought this rule in. If you do 3 felonies, then you get 25 to life. Okay, you get 25 years in prison or life in prison. And life in prison in America is like forever. You don't get out. So it's great to see that rule. You know, 3 felonies would be like, you know, armed robbery, like something like that, like robbery, like stuff, not petty crime, okay? But 3 big felonies in America. If you do 3 felonies, you go to jail for flipping 25 years or life in prison, which is great. I would love to see that here in Ireland, honestly, guys. Because the criminals here, they don't fear the fucking crime. And the people coming in that they're bringing in these droves from IPAS centers, there's huge amounts of people from Albania and just random places in the world. You know, all these people that have no background checks, potential criminals. You know, ISIS they're bringing in, maybe. Who the hell knows? You know, these people need to face consequences for the actions, you know?
Saying that we do not give people second chances. I'm saying maybe we stop at 5 second chances.
Yeah.
Because in this country we are giving people second chance after 95th chance or 92nd chance. And the result of it is a society where you can't walk through the streets of Dublin because of antisocial behaviour late at night.
Yeah. That's the thing, guys. The antisocial behaviour is huge. I've really noticed that. Like, that is a huge thing now where, like, I wouldn't really be walking around Dublin too much. And I'm a fully grown man. Like, I'm not a small individual or scared or anything like that. But definitely, guys, you know, the antisocial behavior has just gone through the roof. You know, it's just people robbing stuff. I saw a guard running after a guy with a handgun, and your man is flipping trying to steal a motorcycle. Like, it's just flipping. It's like the Wild West, guys. The Wild West would actually look timid compared to some places in Dublin. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Now, here we have Trina O'Connor explains how the bail system currently works in Ireland, okay?
Bail is there to keep wider society safe, so there's conditions on bail. So if you're given bail, you are given an opportunity to come back and answer to the charges that are put against you. So there's 3 different types. So you can get station bail. A guard will give you bail from the station, and then you will come back when you've got your court date. You've got the district court where you can be given bail, but you might have to agree to stay at a certain address, or you may have to agree not to interfere with the case or witnesses. And then there's High Court. So the idea behind bail is that we've got a presumption of innocence within our criminal justice system.
Innocent until proven guilty, okay? But in case, of course, if you're, you know, social media person, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Andrew Tate, Conor McGregor, Brandon, what's his name? All these different social media characters, it's guilty until proven innocent. That's what it is if you're on social media. But if you're just a citizen of Ireland, hopefully the bail system works properly for you.
And it's important that people can be kept safe from people who may be a danger to them, particularly witnesses and victims and wider society.
And when the Taoiseach there says it might be constitutionally challenging to overhaul it to a great degree. What does he mean by that?
I don't know, to be honest, because I know things have to go before the doll and things have to be debated, but I'm not sure exactly what he meant when he used that phraseology. I think sometimes we kind of hear different things come out, and it might be difficult to find the words because this is...
Okay, guys, that's pretty much over right there, but not much from her. I don't know, some of these people just make no sense, talk nonsense. But okay, the prison system doesn't work, Matt McCarthy argues, citing the ongoing call to review bail laws. Let's hear this one. So
the prison system doesn't work. The level of recidivism is huge. I think a 2020 report suggests that for those under 21 who find themselves in prison and then subsequently...
Is it not oxymoronic to say that the system doesn't work?
Yeah. Sure. Did you hear that? So Kieran Cuckoldry likes to interrupt people and is talking shy, but your man there, Matt McCarthy, said the recidivism rate where people come back to prison, 60% if you're under 21. That's more than half of people are going back into jail. Like, that's crazy. There has to be some kind of way that we can kind of reestablish people into society, put them through college, put them through this, have them do work for flipping like a plumber or a carpenter or something like that.
We need to build a bigger prison.
And part of the
so we'd have more prisoners.
Well, part of the reason
who
why...
would all become recidivists.
Part of the reason why the system doesn't work is because of the overcrowding within the... So the prison service can't actually do the work that it's supposed to be doing in terms of rehabilitation and education, precisely because you have overcrowded cells, sometimes where people who are on remand are placed alongside sentenced prisoners. So there is absolutely a need to ensure...
I'm not sure about that. Sorry. I'm not defending for a moment the reality that about 400 prisoners are going to be forced to sleep on mattresses on the floor tonight. Not for one moment. That's inhumane. They should not be sleeping like that. But that's not why they're not being rehabilitated, surely.
The prisons...
Well, okay, so what, of course, Kieran doesn't understand is when you're just thrown away into the prison system, it doesn't make for any sort of rehabilitation. There should be programs to get them to go to college, take different classes, like Spanish lessons, all that kind of shit, where you should be trying to teach the prisoners, here's how you make money, maybe have them sign up for what's it called, Hustlers University. Okay, make them do stuff that actually pushes them better in life, guys. If you just throw 400 people in on the floor and treat them like dogs, that's not going to be indicative of rehabilitating people. Absolutely not, guys. Very rarely do prisoners come out and make it in this world. Okay, you guys see on the internet some people are like that, but not everyone is like that, guys. That's kind of like 1 in 1,000, make it out and actually do some kind of good stuff, guys. So yeah, unbelievable. So let's hear what she says here. So Trina O'Connor talks about rehabilitating people. So here's how they rehabilitate prisoners.
Okay, so I don't think we should be taking lessons in criminal justice from America. We know what's going on over there.
Is that an argument? That's not an argument.
So, well, if you let me finish. Okay.
Of course we should. They have very strict laws there. Their crime is through the roof, though, so they kind of have to have strict crime. But our crime is much more lower compared to the US. But
So I suppose a lot of the young people that I work with come to me and they will have been involved in crime from a very early age, where they would have been groomed and they would have been taken advantage of, and they actually have a dual status. So they may be criminal, but they also may be victims of crime themselves. And actually there's lots of different ways that we can rehabilitate people. It doesn't always have to be prison. So we can use restorative justice, we can use guarded diversion, we can use community sanctions. But actually at the heart and the root of this is that we need to be looking at the social protections that we're putting around people and the scaffolding that we're putting around people who are struggling. So people are struggling, they're marginalised, they're in areas of deprivation. And I don't believe that we should put people in prison and throw away the key, because everybody deserves to be able to be rehabilitated in some way.
Wrong. Okay, what if you commit mass murder or something? You're obviously not going to be able to be rehabilitated, or a terrorist attack, guys. You're not going to be rehabilitated because you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail. What is she talking about?
And I don't think it's fair to suggest that prison is the answer for everything, because it's not. I've seen it in my work, in 30 odd years of working in communities. I've seen young people turning their lives around and leaving criminality behind when supports are put in place for them.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, but she made a really big slip up there. She said everyone can be rehabilitated. Well, no. Okay, some people are sentenced to death in the US because they kill massive amounts of people. We don't really have crime like that in Ireland. We kind of do with the gangs, but the US have like serial killers. They have like a crazy amount of, even in England as well, in the UK, they have like crazy amount of crime. So let's move on to the next one. So this lady here, okay, she's looking like 101 Dalmatians here. Let's see what she's talking about.
Well, I think it's really unfortunate what happened in the long run, but what we did see was...
She's talking about Coolock. So.
Kind of a failure of community engagement, a failure to speak to communities, to listen to maybe what they need. And we saw an approach really that set communities up to fail. And we saw an approach that didn't kind of listen and didn't act to respond. And we kind of saw, it was a bit of an approach as well of the community engagement team, or lack thereof, kind of putting its head in the sand and kind of forcing through something that was really difficult and really not kind of fit for purpose as well. So I think there's a lack of an approach within the government actually to talk properly to communities, to kind of trust communities that they will be able to respond, and so they haven't done that. And over the years, I suppose what we see in the Hope and Courage Collective is hundreds and thousands of people across the country who were really welcoming, and the people of Coolock are no different, but they weren't really given the opportunity to be welcoming, to stand up. They had something kind of forced on them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, but here's the thing, guys. There should be nobody brought to the country. Like I said, like if there's people that want to come and kind of do some sort of work, you know, given work visas, and then after 2 or 3 years you have to go back home, stuff like that, guys. Maybe that could be allowed, okay? But this sort of bringing in thousands of people, it's bullshit. Nobody in the whole country agrees with it anymore. And if you're blind to that fact in 2025, you're an idiot. Like, nobody agrees with that on the ground. It's just these higher up elites that are given money to bring people in. That's plain and simple. Okay, Coolock is a disadvantaged area. They would never put these IPAS centres into nice places like Dalkey or, you know, like I say, Dunleary. But, okay, there's an IPAS centre in Dunleary, but I mean the nice places in Dunleary. Sure, there's a shit part of Dunleary. There's a shit part of flipping everywhere in Dublin. But we're talking about the flipping rich parts. They never put them into the rich parts. Never beside the rich people, guys. It's always right beside the flipping people, the working class. It's bullshit, man. Okay, so the next segment we have of the Kieran Cudley Tonight Show on Virgin Media is, of course, going to be a debate between the three guests. How would they handle Coolock, okay?
Matt, how would Sinn Féin have managed Coolock, for example?
So we wouldn't have ever suggested putting an IPAS centre in a community like Coolock that is clearly disadvantaged, clearly is under pressure in terms of services, and we wouldn't have allowed a situation to get to the point where you have what is in effect a very small number of individuals who have been made millionaires as a result of what is government outsourcing. Remember, the only criteria that government have really applied to the location...
I love the way he said that the individuals have become millionaires. That's literally what it's about, guys. It's not about being altruistic. It's about making money off these people from the third world. That's what it is about.
Government have really applied to the location of IPAS centres is the availability of a building. That's it. Nothing else comes in. So even in places where IPAS centres have been located and there are different levels of success in terms of integration and the impact on a local community, but nobody ever checked beforehand what the local health services, the schools, the capacity of social services in a community was. The building was available. Somebody was willing to use it for that purpose, and that became the only criteria.
That should be the criteria. The availability.
So as you know, and I think I was in this studio where we outlined what we have set out. And this is the back end, because there's a whole raft of issues that need to be dealt with in terms of the international protection system. But in terms of where you accommodate those people while their applications are being processed, a process that takes far too long, there are some communities that it shouldn't even be up for consideration. Where
should it be considered?
The Public Deprivation Index sets out where it shouldn't. After that, it should be state-led, and there has to be meaningful public engagement.
Name a community for me in Ireland that has spare GPs and empty school places.
No, I'm not going to go into naming places where IPAS centres could be located, because quite frankly, that's not my job.
Okay, so, they shouldn't be finding where to put them. Okay, the goal should be not having these IPAS centers whatsoever, guys. They don't add to the flipping country. It's not a good way to do immigration. It's terrible. It's just so people can make money off them. And it's quite sickening, really. It's just so rich people can get richer. Okay, we got the second last one or third last one.
I find the whole notion of community engagement utterly hilarious. And it's spewed constantly. Oh, we should just engage. We have more community engagement. That would help people understand. No one ever says that about Ballsbridge, do they? No one ever says if they try to open an IPAS centre in Ballsbridge and the locals organise a petition against it and the lawyers come in and all of a sudden the plan is quietly dropped. You don't ever see the Hope and Courage Collective on here saying we should engage in community engagement. No, that's only...
Ballsbridge is the same as Dalkey, for those who don't know. Super rich area. It's like where all the politicians live.
For the working class communities. They're the only ones who need to be engaged with to be made a little bit less offensive in their views. The entire concept of community engagement is laughable. If you look at the village of Dundrum in County Tipperary, where there is, not far from where I am, where there's a hotel there that's been derelict for a number of years, which was once a thriving business. And the community really hoped. They really hoped it would come back and be a business again, and new owners came in. No one actually knows who owns the company, who owns it anymore. It's almost impossible to find out. That company, however, has applied to the state for an IPAS licence, and now it's going to be full of 200 people, which more than doubles the population of that small village. So not only is it losing its only source of employment, the population is suddenly doubling. Yep. And we're told that this can be solved with community engagement, that you just need to... I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about the Hope and Courage Collective, who tell us this all the time. It's the big bad far right who are coming in spreading misinformation. No, the reality on the ground is that in community after community in this country, people have seen not only their people being put into towns where there's pressure on services, but actual services taken away. In County Tipperary and Clonmel and Nina and other places, there were active cases where there were only hotel in the town. The only place people could go to have lunch on a Sunday was being taken away and turned into an accommodation centre. Yeah. They were losing employment, they were losing services, and the population was being doubled. And then this idea that you can engage with people and make them accept that, it is laughable.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with John there. Good way to say it. The hotels are gone now. They're taking hotels. Second of all, that's going to lose tourism as well, have a knock-on effect in that local area on the youth, 18 to 25-year-olds that work these jobs as bartenders, that work in the hotels, and also just having no lack of services as well. Like, I can't get a doctor to save my life, guys. I don't know about everybody else in Ireland. Like, I can't get a doctor to save my life. I haven't gone to the doctor in years and years, like 7 years. I would go to get like a blood taken every now and again just to see if I'm okay, not flipping dying of cancer or some shit, But like, apart from that, you can't get a doctor to save your life, guys. It's crazy, man. Okay, we got another video from this one, Idel McGinley.
But we do have an issue around, deprivation in this country, inequality in this country. We should be able to do more. We should be able to do it all. We are a country that is awash with money.
We really aren't awash with money. Not at all, guys. Okay, this country is like a third world country pretending to be a first world because of big American corporations, Google, Amazon, Apple, Starbucks, like all that bullshit,
We can invest in our services, we can invest in infrastructure, we can invest in green spaces for people, we can
invest in green spaces. There's 15,000 homeless people. That real figure is about 40,000. Everyone can't buy a house. It's broke. Everyone hates each other. The crime is through the roof. This woman's retarded. What the hell?
Investment in community development. We need investment in youth services. And these are all part of the fabric of society that kind of will inoculate actually against the far right, that actually brings people on board and brings us all together. And
See, when you talk, it sounds to me like you care more about inoculating people against the far right than you care about those communities. You say you've got representatives around the country. Your organisation is taxpayer funded. You represent the government. Represent the government's agenda. You don't represent local communities.
Yep.
And
I love that. You represent your own company. You're here to make money. You don't care about the people. This is what these NGOs and corporations don't care about the people, guys. They care about making themselves money.
Well, it comes back to this. We need to inoculate people against the far right. What do you mean against the reality that they're facing in their community? Against the reality of a town that's seeing its largest employer shuttered and its population doubled all night. overnight while those services are taken away. There is enormous anger in this country. And once again, this is a panel, and I'm not having a go at you, Kieran, but you see this on media show after media show after media show. 73% of people in this country say in opinion polls, immigration is too high, it has been too high for too long, and we can't cope with it. And yet every panel on every media show tends to be overloaded with the same kind of voices from the same state-funded, taxpayer-funded, left-wing organisations pretending to speak from the public when you've got no mandate.
I think
Bro, he just absolutely bitch slapped everybody on the stage there. He bitch slapped Kieran, he bitch slapped this lady, 101 Dalmatians. Oh my god, that was perfect, guys.
Too high, it has been too high for too long.
Yeah, immigration's been way too high, guys. Like I said, they brought in 400,000 people last year. I know Ukraine is in a war, but we can't take all the Ukrainians either. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're coming from. You know, Ireland isn't this charity country where we bring everybody in. Oh, free for all. You know, that's not how Ireland is, guys.
And we can't cope with it. And yet every panel on every media show tends to be overloaded with the same kind of voices from the same state-funded, taxpayer-funded...
State-funded left-wing woke bastards, guys. Commie, Marxist.
Left-wing organisations pretending to speak from the public when you've got no mandate.
Let's
I
go.
think
No
John's
mandate.
living under a rock. I think last year, didn't we see that the main issues around the election were in relation to housing and the cost of living?
Sorry, but John's quoting opinion polls as well. I mean, when you
Well,
say living under a rock, he's
these-
right. He's right that over 70% of people say that it's too high. And what's more...
There you go. Finally, Kieran is sticking up for more conservative manners. Like, Kieran... I actually really like Kieran. I hate him, but he could be a great guy. If I could, like, get him in the gym, if I could, like, show him a few videos that would kind of make him more, you know, center or more right-leaning, he'd be a great guy. Like, but he's just, you know, he's just such a left-wing woke bastard, man. I can't get over it. But he's right, you know, he's being fair there. The opinions say 70% of people say this shit is too high, it's ridiculous. You know, and this is what's causing the lack of housing as well.
Actually, the two main government, and with all due respect to that, the two main government parties re-elected have kind of agreed with John. They wouldn't say this out loud, but I mean, they're parroting the same lines that he and his fellow travellers might have been suggesting a couple of years ago. The numbers are too high, and we have to take measures to reduce them.
I think hell has just frozen over. I can't believe Kieran is agreeing with somebody on the right for once. Unbelievable. Maybe he watches my videos.
There's no other way to interpret what the government have done in terms of adding countries to the safe lift and more checklists on the border and deportation flights. That's an acknowledgement from the two big parties in this state.
Finally, guys, hell is frozen over. Okay, here we guys have here talking about the IPAS centres dysfunctionality.
So, like, migration is a very broad term. You have free movement in terms of EU and Britain. You have work and student permits. You have a temporary protection directive, and then you have those people who are seeking international protection. And in each of those areas, pressures can be brought on services and on things like housing. Nobody, I think, would deny that. But I don't think anybody either would deny that the international protection system is largely dysfunctional. It still takes far too long for processes to the process of the application to take place. Then when the process has run its course, we don't know in a majority of cases whether or not the decisions are actually being enforced. And then we have this scandal in the centre whereby, as I say, a small number of companies manage to find their way in, and we don't know exactly how these guys manage to get into the system, but they make an absolute packet, and it is true.
Oh, they make so much money, guys. Someone was saying he was getting, what was it, like €64,000 a month. So it was like crazy, or 84,000 a month, and he rejected it because he owns like enough properties. He's like rich enough, you know. And like the very few people would reject that, guys. Like, it's crazy.
Communities, if you're in a community that has lost its GP service, that the local post office, local Garda station have been closed, and then your last remaining hotel is being turned in overnight to emergency accommodation, regardless of who it is that's going to be accommodated, of course you're going to antagonise it.
Oh yeah, I agree, 100%, guys. So let's hear the last video, guys. The last video here.
Fear they have, though, is that when they engage, that I guess the opposition maybe to the IPAS centre becomes hijacked.
Yeah, and that has happened. We've seen that around the country. We've seen people travelling from protest to protest. And I actually live and work in the area of Coolock, so I experienced this firsthand, and I witnessed young people being groomed into criminality. Young, vulnerable people, impressionable people.
Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that, guys. No young person is groomed in criminality. Young people just see the bullshit that's happening with these IPAS centers. Everybody in the country sees this, guys.
Being fed disinformation and misinformation and being used as
How can an IPAS center be a victim of disinformation? It is what it is. It's like reading the flipping back of a canned fish or something. It's just plain and simple. The ingredients is right there. What is she talking about?
Cannon fodder in a lot of these places where young people were pushed forward, and I saw the riot from the street as it happened. And well, actually, the reality of what happened in Coolock is it has tremendously scarred that community. And we now have families that are broken. We have brothers against brothers, and people actually in a lot of ways are very fearful to speak about it.
That's bullshit again. Those are two things she said that are bullshit. She knows that families are broken up because of it. What evidence does she have to support that claim? That is complete nonsense.
We have community organisations trying to pick up the pieces of the mess that was left behind with no resources. Many people asking, well, what is going to happen on that site? What is the government going to do to support us to create community cohesion again?
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this lady is so awful. The women on the show right there, guys, I mean, they just big flipping awful representation of women, to be perfectly honest with you. So, okay, so last video today we got Polish politician Grzegorz Braun tore down the European Union flag, wiped it with his shoes and burned it. He stated that Poland would not be displaying the symbols of what he called a hostile organization. Wild. This is Poland, not Brussels. Globalism is losing. It's good to see. One of the reasons why we have a crazy country in Ireland is because of this globalist, Marxist, EU-driven state. The UN and EU ruling over Ireland. It's like if Ireland was to vote 100% against something, the EU could just overhaul that and just completely bring it in. Okay, no matter if 100% of citizens didn't agree with it. Okay. Polska.
W ogóle nie ma czegoś takiego. Nie ma czegoś takiego. Nie ma takiego państwa. Chwała Bogu, nie ma jeszcze takiego państwa. Więc nie będziemy w Polsce, w polskim ministerstwie
Polish people are based. Polish people are legends. Eastern European people are just flipping mentally tough as nails, guys. They didn't give a shit about this stuff.
Znaków wrogich nam organizacji, które, chwała Bogu, nie mają statusu państwowego. Tego typu emblematy nie są otoczone.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. But let me know your thoughts on that, guys. Of course, the amount of videos from The Tonight Show, okay, with Virgin Media and all that. There's a ton of different shows coming out for that. So let me know what other reactions I should do as well. I love you all. If you want to help support me, push back into mainstream media, hit the join link underneath the video, become a member. And I'll see you guys in the next one, Matt. Peace.